One is just, we fail to see how the interactions change the interactions. Everything means something. Everything means something. Everything counts. Everything matters. What you give off, what you take in, how you choose to take it in. The other part that sucks is you can't just save game and then pursue one course of life and then go, oh, change my mind, go back to the save point and then try a different course of life, go back to the save point and try a different course of life. You only get to live going forward. And so you can be filled again with anxiety, like, oh, which choice do I make, until you realize it probably doesn't matter a lot. I mean, like, is it gonna change the course of your life? Yes. But is it gonna make your life better or worse? Yes. That's the part that has everything to do with you. What are you going to do with the circumstances that you find yourself in, based off of all of the interactions, of all the people's lives, of all the decisions that you get to make and don't get to make? What do you do with that? Yeah, and and again, this can drive you crazy, or it can liberate you. There's a philosopher named Albert Camus, who you might learn about next year if you take an AP. He has this philosophy. I don't know if he called it philosophy. He wouldn't have called it a philosophy. He just called it absurdism. And absurdism is an approach to life that essentially just says, life is so incredibly absurd. It's just weird. And then you end, and that's it. So for example, I like to put things in that practical, real-world way, like you're talking about with your sister coming to pick you up. And you look at how little tiny things make such a massive difference. Even with regards to the motorcycle, it wasn't even just 30 seconds. It's like 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Now, let's just say he does get delayed by 30 seconds. Is there anything else that happens from there that's worse? So for example, I remember I was talking to a friend of mine. This was quite a number of years ago. Just let me unpack it and it'll make sense after I get done with it. He used to go and hang out with his friends every Thursday evening. I think it was Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. There was one Thursday, he was in I'll tell you the whole story. So he was in a band, and they used to rehearse every Thursday night. I think it was like 3 nights a week they used to rehearse, but one of them was a Thursday night. And they had done this for like over a year, every single Thursday night. One Thursday night, there was the band rehearsal got canceled. I don't even remember what it was, why it happened, but he told me this story kind of afterwards. I was walking with them all. And again, that'll make sense in just a second. So he told me that the rehearsal gets canceled. So instead of going to the band rehearsal, he goes to a coffee shop so that he can just study some studies in school, study. When he gets there, there's this roundtable group that meets up every Thursday night. And he's sitting at a table nearby and he hears them and they're just like discussing current events, whatever. They just get together, coffee. And they're all like in their late teen, like early 20s, late teens or so. Afterwards, he sees this girl who's there, and he's kind of curious to know because she's talking about some stuff, whatever. So afterwards, he ends up talking to her, and she's just like, oh yeah, come here every Thursday night, whatever. But then she ends up telling him it's her last Thursday night there, and he's like, why? And she said, I just signed up for the Army. And he goes, oh. Have you always wanted to be in there? And she was only like 19, I think it was. So he said, have you always wanted to be in the Army? She said, no, it's just like a new thing that I've kind of gotten my head around I wanted to do, blah, blah, blah. And then after talking to her for a while, they ended up hanging out, and she ended up telling him, no, I actually signed up because I really want to get away from home. I just don't want to be here. She just hated her family, hated her, and her mom was an alcoholic, abusive. Her brother actually had fetal alcohol syndrome, if you know what that is. So it was like a really bad family situation. Had stepdads coming through who were always abusive. So she joined and she wanted to get she wanted to get as far away as she could from her family and her situation. So he was like, oh wow. So he ends up asking her, well, before you leave, do you want to get together and talk? And she said no. And he said, why not? And she just said, because she's kind of straightforward. And she said, because I find you attractive and I'm leaving. And if I do that, if I hang out with you, it's gonna be hard for me to leave. I don't want anything to make it hard for me to leave. And then he said, oh, well, I'm flattered, but I'm not really into you. I'm into somebody else. He had a girl he was already talking to and seeing. Well, back then you called it dating. So he ends up, so they go, oh, so they end up hanging out because they figured no threat. They hang out the entire evening from whatever time the coffee shop closed until the next morning. And then they became friends. Very long story short. Within 3 weeks, they got engaged. So she ends up going off to the army. He signs up because he's like, well, fuck it, I'll go too. You know, he had some things going on, but it seemed like an adventurous thing, so he signs up. They end up getting kind of stationed in the same place. They're going to be in basic training at different times, but afterwards they're going to be, you know, together when they're finished with all their training and all that. So I asked him, so what was her job? And her job was petroleum supply. So she was going to pump gas. I asked him what his job was. And his job was chemical weapons analyst. So his job was going to be to identify chemical weapons. He'd been through school already, so he was going in as an officer. So essentially his job was going to be, if anything ever happened in the world where there was chemical weapons involved, he was going to be attached to infantry units looking for chemical weapons basically to make them so they can't be operated, long story short. So I'm like, wow, well, let's hope nothing happens, huh? That was in July or August of 2001. Okay. So I'll let you guys do the math on that. What ends up happening like a month later? 9/11. And all of a sudden we're at war in the Middle East. And there's two things that the Middle East has a lot of: chemical weapons and gas. So guess where he gets sent? Yeah, I was talking to him, one of the last times I ever talked to him, we were walking up and down Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, and 9/11 had happened. We were at war. He was supposed to be shipping out, so I think it was like October or November of that year or so. And so in that meantime, between when the attacks happened and when he shipped out, and we're just walking up and down the street, and he's talking about going off to war, you know, huge changes, scared, but, you know, nervous, but excited, and everything. And afterwards, I just go, all of this because your band canceled the practice? Like, you're gonna be at war because your band canceled practice? And he just goes, shit, you're right. If he hadn't gone to the coffee shop that night, he never would have met her. If that band hadn't canceled that practice, he never would have been at the coffee shop. He wouldn't have been in and he did. You know, he went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan, and last I heard, he's out of the military and doing some whatever job. I'm not even sure what he's doing anymore. But that's such an incredible trip, isn't it? Just because your band canceled practice one night, all of a sudden your life is different. Now, again, you can say, well, what if he had been killed? So he got killed because of that? No, because all of our lives are this constant intersection of the choices that we make, but also the choices that others make. There's this philosophy also called solipsism, and we have to avoid this philosophy at all cost. There are two philosophies we have to avoid at all cost. One of them is solipsism. And solipsism is the idea that the only thing that exists in the universe is me, literally. That the whole universe is a creation of my imagination, of my intellect. And when I die, the whole universe dies. It's gained more traction recently because it's kind of like a simulation theory sort of a thing. Where imagine if this is all a simulation, there's a good chance that the simulation might all be based around just you. And all the rest of us are NPCs. So if you die in this simulation, the whole universe dies, the end. So therefore, the only thing that matters in the universe is you. Now you might sit there and go, who believes that? Whether or not people believe it, most of you live like this. In other words, the belief that I'm the only thing that matters. I see people who, like I was remembering, for example, this, I was over in LA, this is several months ago. There was a car, I'll just visualize with my hands. There was a car that was gonna turn left, and there were these two turn lanes. But the car wasn't in those two turn lanes, it was in the third lane over, He just missed the turn lane. So the light's green, traffic is backing up behind him, everyone's honking at him, and he's just like turned his car a little bit with his turn signal on, as to say, oh, I'm turning left here. Like, it's a busy intersection in LA. Traffic is backing up. People are honking. It's creating a chaotic situation here. But that person's view is, but I missed my turn. Do you realize how many problems you're causing for the whole world around you? Rather than just go up one block and turn and go? Wasn't that person just selfish? Yeah, but it's not just a selfishness. It's a complete disregard for the fact that you're surrounded by humans who also have places to be, who also have love and hates and passions and families and places to be in, and jobs and everything else, and you're creating incredible anxiety at just one intersection. And then imagine how many times that plays out in the course of a day. Because a person's not thinking about anybody else, because the idea is not just, well, I'm worried about me. The idea is that nobody else matters. That's different. The idea that nobody else matters is different from the idea that, oh, well, I'm the most important. Solipsism is this idea that nobody else even matters at all. You see this when people miss their turn on a freeway. I just saw this video recently, for example, of a car that was stopped on the freeway because they missed their exit. So they throw on the brakes. Cars, massive accident behind that person, everyone's ramming into each other, and then that person sees the clearing, and then they go and they take off. Their whole idea was, I stopped on the freeway. Why? Oh, is it just because they're a bad driver? No. It's this idea that other people never even enter their mind. Why should I care what people think? It's not just like a narcissism. It's not just like a self-centeredness. It's not just a selfishness. It's an idea that other people simply just don't matter. Now, if that's your view about life, well, then you can see how that now starts to play out in the world around you. And then there's a second philosophy that kind of not too far off of that needs to be avoided, nihilism. Nihilism is the idea that nothing matters. You can see the connection between that. Nobody else matters or nothing matters at all. Absurdism kind of comes from this idea. The idea with absurdism is that, yeah, we all matter, but the fact that we even exist is just an accident. There is no God, there's no heaven, there's no hell. After you die, there's nothingness. It's just unconsciousness. And the fact that we even exist is somehow just like a cosmic accident. And all of the things that happen in life are just absurd. They're just absurd coincidences. Yeah, so the guy got his keys with the motorcycle and he got in that accident. If the guy had just missed his keys by 2 or 3 seconds, he's alive. That's just absurd. If you think about it, it's just silly. It's just stupid. Now, how many tragedies a day do you avoid that you never even notice? I mean, anybody ever almost get hit by a car and you're like, man, what's wrong with the world? If only I had been here 2 seconds earlier, I'd have been hit by this car. We completely don't notice the things that go our way. Now, having said all of that together, the point is this. Your life is a series of these little things, like decisions, that take you, even in small ways, in different directions, sometimes backwards even. And it's just, you went to a coffee shop, you left your keys behind, you did this, you did that. But the important thing to keep in mind is that don't be this, don't be a solipsist. It's not just your life, it's a whole bunch of other people's lives. They're constantly intersecting with yours, whether you even realize it or not. And this grid, if I put all the colors up, there would be 8 billion grids. That all of the little tiny decisions that you make impact other people's decisions. Whether that guy, we can look at it and go, wow, the guy who, with the motorcycle, if he'd only gotten to his keys 2 seconds earlier, why didn't he? Because one of his kids didn't move the keys, or because something didn't happen. Like I was thinking this morning, I didn't get coffee on the way in because it took me almost 20 minutes to get onto the freeway from where I live. Normally, it takes me about 4 minutes to get onto the freeway. Why did it take 20 minutes? I don't know. But I know that it was because of the intersection of other people's decisions, who I'll never know, who I'll never see. And so much of your life is reacting to that, responding to that. Now you can go crazy with that. There will be some people who even blame other people for stuff like that. Well, God, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for, or this terrible thing wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that person. Or you can look at it and say, wow, there is an incredible level of freedom to be had here. So what can you do? Can you get your keys or not? Yeah, totally up to you. Which way do you drive to work? Which way do you drive to school? Which way do you walk to school? I wonder how many of you walk to school the exact same way every single day. And then you might wonder why you get to school and you're just like, it's because of the monotony of it. You're doing the same thing every day. You don't think your mind just goes into autopilot? Of course it does. Of course it does. But we just do it because there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying anything wrong with you. It's not criticism. But we do it because we've been trained in that monotony. So that whenever some little thing is different, all of a sudden that alerts us. So if you want to be more wide awake when you get to class or you get to school or you get anywhere, what do? Go around a different block. Change something up just a little bit. It changes up everything about your mind. When you go into that autopilot, you start to miss these things. You fail to see how the interactions of all of our lives together create the options of your life. And again, you can look at that and say, wow, that's so incredibly complex, because it is. It absolutely is. In fact, even, like I remember I know I've told you guys a story about one of my former students he's in the hip hop industry. Some of you might even know who he is. He's somewhat famous, and he sent me a link to an interview he was doing. And he said that the interviewer asked him about like one of the most, like what was like a time in his life or an event that he had that completely changed the trajectory of his life. And he said, I had this English teacher one time, Scanlon, that's me. And he said that one day in class, I said that I'm a different person now than I was when I began this sentence. I'll say it again. I'm a different person now than I was when I began this sentence. Meaning that every single second you've changed a little bit. And because I take in light, my mind has gone through some kind of a change. I have felt something. Whatever it is that you guys hear in this class has everything to do with what comes this way. It has everything to do with the looks I get or don't get, or how many people are distracted, or how many people are not paying attention, or how many people are paying attention, or what kind of a head jolt I get when I say something. Those are the little kinds of things that tell me what direction to go in or to not go in. And so it has everything to do with what I get from here. Now, what if I'm getting the impression from you that you're just not interested? But you are. There's a good chance when I go, forget, just go ahead and put the stuff away, take out your stuff from last time. And it could have been it could have been something that you were totally paying attention to. And then you might be like, wow, what's wrong with Scanlon? Sometimes you get so temperamental because you don't realize these intersections that are happening. And right now you're getting like one looking up here. I'm getting 24 of them, 23 of them right now. So the point is just, we fail to see how the interactions change the interactions. Everything means something. Everything means something. Everything counts. Everything matters. What you give off, what you take in, how you choose to take it in. How do I choose to take it in? I choose to take it in as people just don't look up. People just have their heads down. People can be doing other things and still hearing what's going on. And that's an optimistic view, because then of course the assignments come in and I go, oh no, they weren't. But hope so, because maybe one little thing. I told you I had a math teacher who one time took a deep sigh and said, you're all basically retarded and you're not going to learn math anyway. I told you that story. And that has everything to do with why I'm standing in front of you right now. Now, what's all this got to do with Ocean Vuoung? The part that sucks is you can't just save game and then pursue one course of life and then go, oh, change my mind, go back to the save point and then try a different course of life, go back to the save point and try a different course of life. You only get to live going forward. And so you can be filled again with anxiety, like, oh, which choice do I make, until you realize it probably doesn't matter a lot. I mean, like, is it going to change the course of your life? Yes. But is it going to make your life better or worse? Yes. That's the part that has everything to do with you. What are you going to do with the circumstances that you find yourself in? based off of all of the interactions of all the people's lives, of all the decisions that you get to make and don't get to make. What do you do with that? And we can spend our lives so bitter. Like I know people who are so bitter and angry because I don't have the advantages that other people have. Yeah, and you have stuff that other people don't have. It's funny how we compare ourselves to only the best, but we don't compare ourselves to the 95% of the world who would absolutely kill to be in your situation. I'm thinking of a situation I'm going through right now. I was sitting there yesterday, like sighing and brooding. And I'm like, which wouldn't be a big deal to most people, but I'm just like, wow. A lot of people would kill and die to be in the situation I'm in right now. And I'm not having it. I'm gonna have to make a choice soon. And it isn't a choice between like any bad scenarios. I guess, I mean, they're all kind of negative, but it's based off like one really big, cool thing. And I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and he said, "What do you always tell me? People would kill and die to be in your situation right now." Like, that's true. That's true. 95% of the world would kill and die to be in the situations that we're in right now. Oh my God, I have to go to school. 90% of the world would kill to be allowed to go to school. Oh my God, but I have teachers here who are like, oh my God, I got to deal with these kids. Dude, you signed up for this gig. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to deal with anybody. You can always retire or get out and find another job. Yeah, but then I'm going to have to. Fine, then it's a choice. But as soon as you see that your life is a choice, and so many things in your life are a choice, it becomes so much more fun, so much more interesting. We don't like doing things that we have to do. As soon as you realize that most of life are things that we get to do, and it doesn't really matter which way you go, as long as you make the best of whatever situation you're in when you get there. You know, there is no right way to go. There is no wrong way to go. There's only life. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?